All right, all right, all right. Another episode here, and we're here with Matt Lisle, assistant softball coach at Fresno State. And before he was at Fresno State, he was a hitting analytics analytics instructor, for the Chicago White Sox. He also was a baseball coach at University of Missouri, softball coach South Carolina, and he has his own website called the Hitting Vault, which kind of consists of hitting drills and tips to kind of help athletes develop their swing more. So, Coach, what's going on, man? Thanks for coming on.
Hey, buddy. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
No problem. No problem at all. So, I kind of want to start off with your role with the White Sox. So, kind of two questions here. What did that role consist of? And then what did you kind of learn from that experience that you can now bring to the college level and help, softball and baseball players?
So the role that they brought me into do was a role that they kind of made up. It was a new role that they wanted to. They were really wanting to get it more into hitting analytics and how to use analytics for player development. So it was kind of like this, hey, we're going to try this new role. We don't really know what it's going to look like. And then as we got into spring training, we kind of defined the role as my role was to evaluate and assess every player in the organization. So, and we came up with a system for doing that. So using the K vest and the bat sensors and exit velocity with the Rapsodos and everything, myself and a couple of people from the player development team created this entire system for, here are the metrics that we think are important. Let's assess everybody in spring training with these assessments, and then let's build concordance with all the front office and all the hitting coaches at every level. Let's come up with player development plans for those players, based on their assessments and evaluations, their analytics and their stats from the past years. So trying to bridge the gap between coaching and player development and the analytics team inside. And I think right now in baseball, Major League Baseball, the biggest issue that we're having is like you have the analytics team over here, the data nerds, and then you have the coaches over here, and they don't play well together very much. And
Right.
My background is in both of those areas, so they thought I would be a good bridge for those things.
Yeah.
And honestly, at the major league level, it's a really difficult time right now to try to bridge those gaps. You have the old school, the new school, everyone's trying to play nice together. So that was the role that I had with the White Sox.
Right.
Again, the goal was player development using analytics and assessments, and then throughout the season, continuing to evaluate players, reassess them. Are they getting better? Are they developing? And then, what do we need to do that?
Would you say that like the majority of teams kind of have like somebody like you said, to kind of bridge the gap between the coaches who kind of preach, the old school ways, and then you have kind of the team that, kind of crunches the numbers? Do most teams have guys like you, or is it kind of like a select few teams that really rely on the numbers in terms of hitting?
So I think every team has a full analytics department, and some are bigger and some are smaller. The White Sox department was pretty small, but some teams have huge departments. I think that I do not think a lot of teams have people that are bridging the gap or they're doing it very well. And I think that's kind of the stage that everybody's in. You're seeing a lot of people get hired, Twitter gurus and the different types. You're finding a lot more guys like me who have like a coaching background and working with players and using the data, and those guys are getting hired now. So you're starting to see more and more of that, but I don't think it's fully commonplace yet. I think it's pretty close. I talked to a lot of teams in the last 2 years, and you can see it's going that direction, but I still think that teams are just beginning to really get into that.
Right. And what's like, maybe the main thing you learned, or like a few things you learned with working with a team in Major League Baseball like the White Sox that you can now take to Fresno State, or that you could have taught at like South Carolina or Missouri?
I think for me, the biggest lesson that learned at Major League Baseball level was that, for me, a college coach who spent a lot of time coaching college and coached for 20 years, like when you're an assistant coach or a head coach, you have so much control over everything that's going on player development wise.
Yeah.
And when you work for a major league team, there are so many moving parts from major league coaches to minor league coaches to the front office to the players. There's so many people involved that communication and getting on the same page and teamwork, all those things are even more crucial than at the college level. And so, and if those things aren't done really well, it can really slow progress. It can really cause issues. And I think, for me, a lesson that I learned from that was that, I tried to step in and probably implement things too much and too fast. And I think that looking back, the lesson I probably learned was I probably should have sat back and listened more, tried to get more lay of the understanding of how communication worked and how everything worked at the major league level, and not assuming that it was a lot like my college experience. And in college, again, like your staff and your team is very small. You're talking about anywhere between 5 to 15 people. At the major league level, you're talking about 50 to 60 different type of coaches at the different type of levels, and strength and conditioning coaches. And so I think just learning how to listen better, how to work collaboratively with more people. I think that's a good lesson for me to take into the future as well.
Okay. And so since you have been with, a lot of different programs, even within like the past 5 years, you've kind of bounced around a little bit. What kind of challenges come with that, in terms of like having different players, having like certain individuals that need certain things, because you can't have a cookie cutter approach when you walk into certain programs. So what was that whole experience like, before Fresno State and kind of bouncing around a little bit?
Yeah, and for me, I think anytime you start somewhere new, it's the whole process is building a relationship and building trust and the buy-in, and that takes time. For me, at my age, 43 years old, having 5 kids, a single income, and a stay-at-home wife, life is just different for me versus someone who is 25 years old and getting into coaching, and so every year you've got to decide, what's the best thing for my family, and how do we pay the bills?
Yeah.
And those are things that you don't really think a lot about when you get into coaching. Is like, I just want to coach and I want to do this full-time job. And then, at Missouri, for example, I was the volunteer assistant, and we were all hoping that the third assistant coach was going to pass by the NCAA, and we were so sure of that, and then it didn't pass, and that changes everything. And again, it's like, and through different jobs in your career, like circumstances come up, and you're like, oh man, I didn't expect it to happen. So for me, the biggest thing when coming into a new program is I've got to establish relationship. You've got to start building trust. And that's for me is the biggest part of it. And so that once you start building those relationships and you start building trust, then you can start implementing plans. And I think that a lot of coaches make the mistake when they move somewhere else is to say, it's my way or the highway. This is how we're going to do it, without really building the relationship first and without building the trust. And, again, like you mentioned, every athlete is different. Every athlete needs to be coached differently. And you can't learn those things unless you build a relationship first. So for me, that's kind of the method that I use whenever I'm going to somewhere new.
What are those ways that you kind of build those relationships though? Because like, kind of coming in, like a lot of it is like a trust thing too with a lot of athletes, because they have like certain coaches they trust, like certain coaches will say thing one way, and you're practically saying the same thing, but it might click for somebody else. I'm sure you've experienced that before. So what's a way that you kind of build those relationships?
I mean, first and foremost, just sitting down and getting to know the players, like on a very personal level, like getting to know them, like, and building an actual relationship with them, not just not, about hitting or pitching or anything else, like actually getting to know them really well.
Right.
That would be the number one thing. And then, the first thing I tell all of my hitters, major league hitters, college hitters, everything, the first rule that I have is you can always call BS with me. And, and what I mean by that is like, hey, if another coach tells you to do it differently, or your dad tells you to do it this way, or, you've been taught this way to do it your whole life, and I tell you something different, you're allowed to call BS with me. And what I mean by that is say, hey, this is the way I've been taught. I disagree with it. And then I will sit down with that hitter and we'll talk it out. We'll use the phrase, we hug it out.
Yeah.
And we get on the same page and we figure out what's best for that hitter. And by having that open door policy, by allowing them to call BS, it allows that relationship to grow versus, again, like saying, this is my way, this is the only way we're going to do it. And it goes against, what they believe in their hearts and what their coaches or dads taught them or whatever the thing is. That allows that relationship to grow and build when you can allow them to be able to do that.
Absolutely. So, in terms of your website, the Hitting Vault, what I want to know is like, how did it start? Um, how does it help baseball and softball players alike, and what kind of drills you have on there for hitters?
Yeah, it started about 6 years ago, and my goal was I was sharing all this hitting information on social media, drills and tips and stuff like that. And I came across, there were a lot of guys out there selling DVDs and different things, and I was like, you know what? I think it would be really cool to have a membership website with all these drills, and you log into the website and you can watch them that way and learn about hitting that way.
Right.
And initially it was just drills. It was like 30 drills, drills that I had learned from different coaches in my life and drills that I had used. And then it really evolved into this complete hitting program, the mental program, fitness program, game day stuff. So right now, I mean, drills is still a big portion of it, but it really is not the only thing. Like the Hitting Vault has bat speed programs and mental training programs. It's got a program called Swing Fit with a training program. So now it's developed into, everything that you need to know about hitting as a parent or a coach or an athlete. It's in this one place. And I think nowadays with social media and YouTube, you can find all that information out there, but it's so scattered. It's so conflicting.
Yeah,
and the
absolutely.
Hitting Vault is a place where you can go and it's all a centralized philosophy around doing damage, hitting the ball hard, hitting it more consistently. That whole thing is all in one place, so you don't have conflicting information. It's just kind of an all-in-one inclusive hitting program that and we've been really fortunate that thousands and thousands of people have been members and had success with it, from pro level down to 8-year-old kids. So it's been a labor of love. Really proud of the work that we've done with it, and continue to add good content. We just partnered with Blast Motion, and so there's a lot more drills in there regarding blast motion and how to hit those blast motion numbers and explaining bat sensors and stuff like that. So it continues to evolve, and it's been an exciting 6-year run almost.
That's awesome. And, I can really appreciate that because on social media, like you mentioned, there are so many accounts with all these hitting coaches, and they post like so many videos a day, and they have all these different philosophies and drills, and like it's like you're trying to find like what will work for you, and like, oh, I like that one, like I don't know what that one means, so I really do think that's
and that's one way to
it's a
do it.
great thing you're doing.
That is a way to do it. I mean, I think you can watch all the drills and videos out there, and you can try to find what resonates with you, and that can work. It just takes a lot of work to do that, and you're just not sure if that thing helps that thing, and you're not sure. And so I think a lot of people out there, they cherry pick what they like. And for me, and I can tell a lot of other good hitting coaches out there, they're always evolving. They're saying, hey, you know what, we did do that for a couple of years. We really think this way might be better. And so, trying to evolve into what's the next thing, and not just, what clicks for you, and not kind of what I think what a lot of people do is the flavor of the week.
Yeah, absolutely. So last question I have for you is, in terms of college hitters now, what to you is either like the key to being a great college baseball hitter and college softball hitter, or maybe it's a few things? Just what have you seen for kids that really excel, like the All-Americans and the high draft picks? Like, what do they do that works for them?
I'll kind of answer it in two different ways. So number one, from a data standpoint, it's OPS and WOBA. And what that means, OPS is on-base percentage plus slugging percentage, and WOBA is weighted on-base average. And so what those two things mean to me from a data standpoint in real word terms is my hitting philosophy. My hitting philosophy is do damage and get on base. And so the best college athletes, the best college hitters, the best pro hitters that I've ever worked with or seen or watched, recruited, are ones that do those two things. They do damage, they swing hard, they can hit the ball with a high exit velocity, and they do damage with slugging percentage, but they also have a high on-base percentage. They find ways to get on base, and that involves good plate decision. That involves plate discipline, mental approach, a good swing path. And so for me, those two things combined, being able to do damage, hit the ball hard, and you have people who do a really good job of that and have low contact. They swing at everything. They don't have good plate discipline, and vice versa. And the best hitters in college baseball and softball have high OPS, high WOBA, and what that means is they're doing damage and they can get on base, and that kind of marries the whole thing of swinging hard, having a good swing, but also really good plate discipline, knowing what is your red zones, what you do damage on, what pitches to lay off of, and pitch recognition, and everything that's involved with plate discipline. To me, that is the package deal for me in regards to the best hitters in the game.
Awesome. And I do think that, because I sometimes like I don't even understand like what those things mean. I mean, like the WOBA stuff, and I think it's good to have a guy like you kind of comes from both worlds, who understands both sides of the ball in terms of the numbers and the old school ways. So, Coach, I think you're doing great things,
I
and
appreciate that.
yeah, no problem. That's all I have for you. Thank you so much for taking the time. I think this is a really great conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Nico. Thanks for having me on. And coaches, remember, if you're an old school coach and you don't believe in launch angle and exit velocity and WOBA or OPS, remember at its core, my philosophy is do damage and get on base. Those are the same things as saying launch angle, exit speed, velocity, WOBA, all those things. They're the same thing. So thanks, Nico, for having me on, and have a great week.
Thank you, you too. Signing off.